So yesterday, during this announcement, Chiwenga was sitting here. You can see that next to him was Opam Chinguri. Opam Chinguri has her own faction in Zanu PF, and she believes that she can be the president of Zanu PF. However, there's also the Christopher Mchangwa faction, and these three factions don't work together. So these three factions that I've explained, these are sort of civilian, they are almost civilian factions. However, there's a military faction that is led by General Valerio Swanda, and Valerio Swanda is seen as someone who is acceptable to many people in the military and people outside of the military. And Mnangagwa, according to my sources, prefers Valerio Swanda to take over. And therefore, the plan would be to get rid of Chiwenga, to get rid of Opam Chinguri, to get rid of Kembo Mohadi, and also Christopher Mchangwa. So these four people, you are going to see them being, there will be an attempt to get rid of these four people. And given that Chiwenga has now aligned himself with Tagwire, it means he now has funds. He's got the financial muscle to do what needs to be done. Opam Chinguri does not have any money. She does not have any money. And if you look at Valerio Swanda, I do not know what access to money he's got. What needs to happen now needs a lot of money. And I think General Chiwenga, because of access to funds, is going to be well placed to take over. However, as I said in the past, Christopher Mchangwa also has access to a lot of money, but he does not have power. So in terms of balance, almost all these factions are balanced, except the weakest faction, which is the Opam Chinguri faction, followed by the Christopher Mchangwa faction. Those are very weak. The two strongest factions would then become the Valerio Swanda faction and the General Chiwenga faction. And whoever among those two factions manages to outmaneuver the other is going to take over and become the next president of Zanu PF. So now I'm talking about Zanu PF. We're not yet talking about the president of Zimbabwe. That's going to be another very difficult assignment. So I'm still talking about here the president of Zanu PF. And that election is going to take place in October 2027. That is when there's going to be an election of the next president of Zimbabwe, next president of Zanu PF, replacing Mnangagwa. And afterwards, the president of Zanu PF will have to go up against the opposition candidate. And the opposition candidate most likely will be Nelson Chamisa. However, I don't believe that Chiwenga wants to go that direction. I believe that Chiwenga is going to be open to a negotiation on a transitional authority. The guys in Zanu PF know very well that they cannot win an election against, for example, Nelson Chamisa. So what they will attempt to do, and I'm looking here at General Chiwenga, he's probably going to go for a transitional authority, some sort of a discussion with Nelson Chamisa. And this means Mnangagwa will have to step down before the end of his term. And I'm talking here about within the next 2 months. That is the direction if General Chiwenga was going to be taking over and if he's the strongest faction within Zanu PF. If Valerio Swanda was going to take over, then what is going to happen is you're going to have the whole thing running through up to 2027. No change from Mnangagwa. That is what Mnangagwa would want. Valerio Swanda would provide stability to Mnangagwa, and he is the preferred successor from Mnangagwa. So Valerio Swanda is the preferred successor from Mnangagwa. That is why you had the military guys talking this week. The military guys want the status quo. I'm not talking about the military in the lower bottom ranks. I'm talking here about the top layer of the generals. They would like to have Valerio Swanda in office as a replacement for Mnangagwa. So you're going to see more maneuvering by the military guys, the top generals who want the status quo to remain, whilst Chiwenga is going to be the guy who is most likely to negotiate with the opposition. So if you look at Chiwenga and watch Chiwenga very, very closely, and Tagwire, those are the guys that if they were to come into office, you are going to see a transitional authority and probably a much better change for Zimbabwe. And if the military guys take over, you're going to see more of the same. That is more of the same for the next 3 or 4 years, leading up to the Zanu PF Congress, which Chiwenga obviously will be able to contest. But I do not see how that is possible. Remember, Valerio Swanda is supposed to come back into Zanu PF. He was previously appointed into Zanu PF. He did not take up the position. But now that Mnangagwa has made the announcement that he's going to step down, you are going to see Valerio Swanda coming back into Zanu PF very, very soon. That announcement is going to be made very, very shortly. You are going to see it, and it's going to be very interesting in terms of what happens in Zanu PF. So my preferred outcome is Chiwenga taking over in Zanu PF and going for a transitional authority, and then leading up to fresh elections in 2028 or in 2040. So the Chiwenga permutation here will probably take us to 2040 with a transitional system or a government of national unity, which goes up from now 2024 to 2040. So that is what would be preferable in Zimbabwe, to allow the country to undergo economic reforms. So Zimbabwe right now, as it stands, it's not possible to have free and fair elections, and you need a period of about 16 years to create a country, a different country, to remove this current system which is there, and to remove the toxic politics that currently